and welcome to this edition of Abergavenny Town Chat, the Abergavenny Town Council podcast. I'm delighted today to welcome Tony Konieczny with me, who has many hats in our town. He's currently the chair of the Abergavenny Civic Society, but also chair of Abergavenny In Bloom. So welcome, Tony. It's lovely to have you
Hello,
here.
It's great to be here.
So we're here today to talk about Abergavenny In Bloom. It's had many different iterations over the years. The town has taken part in it for a long time, successfully so. But would you like to tell us a bit about how it is in its current form?
Yeah, I'd need to go back to 2017, 2018 when the structure of the council changed, and that gave an opportunity for the council to review how they would work with and for the community, and they created a strategy and action plan. And within that plan, we were able to go to a lot of voluntary groups working in the community who were working in isolation, encourage them to have forward-looking plans and give them the encouragement, some financial support at the same time, and bring them into the umbrella of Abergavenny In Bloom. And that's really how it all started to coalesce and come together. It was quite a slow process, but the results gradually saw us improving our scores in Wales in Bloom, which we'd always entered. I mean, one of my proudest moments was the first time we were awarded a gold award, which is the top award for our category. And then the chase was on for us to become the best in our category in Wales, which is the town category. And it took us quite a while to get there, but we did get there. And on the way, we're given the accolade of actually representing Wales in Britain in Bloom. So that is largely due to the core support from the town council, but the amazing volunteer support across all of the volunteer groups that are working in Abergavenny. Probably more than between 150 and 200 volunteers working across all of the different groups.
There's quite a few groups, isn't there?
Yeah.
What groups, in case no one's aware of that, who do you mean by the groups that are involved?
Well, there are a number of core groups looking after quite big projects. The Laurie Jones Community Orchard is a fantastic space and regarded as one of the finest examples of a community orchard in Wales. There's the work at Castle Meadows, which has been enormous in achieving national forest status for the copse there and conservation status for the ponds and reams. There's Linda Vista Garden, which is a jewel for Abergavenny, and there's great work going on there. And then there is the other jewel in the crown, which is the Bailey Park and the Friends of Bailey Park, who do a tremendous job. The park is just, it's always been there, but it's such a fine example of a community park. You can take a variety of sports, you can exercise, you can walk around, you can let your children play, and you can sit and contemplate in a sensory garden. You can enjoy the beautiful flower beds, the trees, you can play bowls, pétanque. There's everything, something for everybody in the park, and it's kept beautifully.
It really is, isn't it? One of the things that we've noticed a change in the last couple of years, particularly entering Wales in Bloom, is the It's Your Neighbourhood category.
Yeah, that's the other thing, that these are much smaller projects, small community projects where neighbours have got together and look after a small area, a little park, a raised garden, some raised beds, Some of the churches have small gardens at the rear of their churches, and all of those are looked after by volunteers, and they all create these amazing green spaces in an urban environment. So what we've seen is an incredible increase in biodiversity because of that. And that's one of the things that's changed in Wales in Bloom, the categories that they look at. They look at our horticultural standards, obviously being RHS, Royal Horticultural Society based organisation. They also look at how we are improving the environment, how we are using sustainable methods for gardening, how we are increasing biodiversity by encouraging pollinators and using native species where they're appropriate. And the other thing that is important to them now is how the community is involved. And it's easy to see how Abergavenny is scoring top marks in all of those.
We're really lucky. The community really come out in force, year round, but particularly at this time of year when we're going through the Wales in Bloom and shortly the Britain in Bloom judging, as we've been entered for a second time. So how have the entries evolved, certainly since Abergavenny was successful in obtaining the crown of overall winners in the town category last year?
Well, the core groups are obviously fired up by their success, and Bailey Park in particular was singled out by the judges as an outstanding area of voluntary achievement at a high horticultural standard. And that was a feather in their crown. They got a special mention in Wales in Bloom. And the judges have always been impressed with that. But the orchard as well is another one that always achieves very, very high praise. What that did was to once we had a meeting to talk about how smaller groups could get involved in Bloom, and it's called It's Your Neighbourhood. It's completely free. You just register your plot and what you've been doing, and during the judge's visit, your plot, the judge will come and have a look at your plot and give you some advice and talk about the work you've been doing, and you're guaranteed to get a certificate which is graded at 5 different levels, from a beginner to level 1, which is to give you some encouragement about how to be improving and to improve your project, right to the top level 5, which is actually outstanding and a commendation for the work that you've done. And we've got, I can't remember now how many, is it 15?
We've gone from the first time we had It's Your Neighbourhood, there were 3 entries. Last year we had 12. This year we have 20.
Right.
So it's growing, literally.
It is literally growing, but it also shows how the community want to be engaged in making the town look absolutely fabulous, and their own neighbourhoods look fabulous as well, and look cared for. This is really important. You come to a town, and visitors do come to us, and they immediately see how clean the streets are, that there's fabulous floral displays, it's a nice area to be, and then there's all the other opportunities to enjoy Abergavenny, from its food destination to the markets, the independent traders. All of that is all part of a whole package which makes the town really attractive to people and great for the residents. What's wrong in living in a really nice town that is cared for, that people give their own time and to actually make it look as great as it does.
This is it. When we talk communities as well, I think something that people don't realise is it's not just, as you say, residents or volunteers, but also the businesses and how they're getting involved now. Part of the Wales in Bloom category. Some of them also include things like hotels, etc. And how that's developed, and the businesses now getting involved with the hanging basket initiative that we have. So how important do you think it is that that continues to grow?
Well, yeah, I mean, originally when Abergavenny In Bloom was driven by the Chamber of Trade, and the businesses were heavily involved. The town council had a minor role, but we no longer have a Chamber of Trade. However, many of the businesses have still continued the tradition of having hanging baskets and floral displays, which make the streetscape look absolutely fabulous. It's a bit difficult because, you know, without a Chamber of Trade, trying to get messages to all of the businesses to ask them if they want to be involved is beyond the scope of the council and the many volunteer groups who want to be involved. But we welcome, you know, the involvement and the growing involvement of a key number of businesses, and we hope other businesses will actually understand what the advantage to the town of actually getting these accolades. You know, the fact that we have been chosen to represent Wales in Britain in Bloom means that people will want to come here and see why we were chosen to represent Wales. That, you know, and we've got everything going for us. We've got a railway station, we've got easy access, we've got good road access, and within a sort of 50-mile radius of Abergavenny, we've probably got in the region of 3.5 million people. So there's a huge market out there of people who can easily come to Abergavenny and enjoy it.
This is it. We're very lucky the businesses that do get involved, of which there are many now, they have on display in their windows, we have window vinyl saying we are supporting Abergavenny In Bloom, which is fantastic. Also for people that are wanting to find out a bit more about Abergavenny In Bloom, particularly this year's submission, something we always produce, it's not a requirement of our entry, but we have a portfolio which we produce, and there's a link to that on the Abergavenny Town Council website. The information that's in that also includes things like the breakdown of the volunteer hours, and you were saying how important that is. There was 150 plus volunteers across the groups, but the hours that are contributed, that's quite important as well, isn't it? We're very rich in that respect.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you monetarised it, you know, you can easily do the maths. If you think about, if you had 150 volunteers and they only did 1 hour each a week, and you monetarise that at the minimum wage, you get some idea of the monetary value of volunteering there. You know, and in fact, many of the volunteers work more than 1 hour a week on their projects, and so, as you say, there's a notional value to that. If the town had to pay for it, you're probably looking at over 200 to $250,000 in value of the work that they do, which is astonishing that the community are prepared to give their time and effort just to make the town look fabulous.
This is it. We are incredibly fortunate. And as you say, there are many volunteers that work across more than one group, and that collaboration is quite important. I think one collaboration that I'm particularly fond of in this particular year's submission is where the Civic Society approached ourselves, the Town Council, and also Abergavenny Rotary, and we've been able, with your guidance, to start work on what we call the Tesco bus stop beds, and how you were able to get the schools involved and young children. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, the beds were in a dreadful state. The maintenance period had lapsed, and the county council just doesn't have the resources anymore to put into the care and maintenance of areas, which is why volunteer groups are working largely on county council land. Bailey Park belongs to the county council. However, the project was dreamt up that we would actually look at co-opting more volunteers to work, people who weren't already in the volunteering sector, to create a project to replant the beds. So it was all done on a shoestring. As Sandra said, 3 funders, the Civic Society, the Town Council and Rotary, all stumped up some money, and we worked with Abergavenny Garden Centre to buy plant plugs. And the plant plugs were looked after by Cantref School, Our Lady in St Michael's, the little tiny tots from Abergavenny Nursery, which is adjacent to the beds, people from U3A and other volunteer groups. So it was completely intergenerational. They looked after the plants till they were ready to plant out, and then we planted them out in the beds. It's an ongoing project, but you can see that the beds are already starting to look really fabulous. And again, the children who planted the plants, they planted them themselves, can come down and look at what they've achieved. And so they've got some ownership, and it's a way to go. And I think there are other areas in the town where we could use the same model and vastly improve the areas.
Right. So with regards to Wales in Bloom and Britain in Bloom, when will people find out how Abergavenny in Bloom have done?
Well, the Wales in Bloom judging will take place in Wrexham on October the 3rd, so we'll know immediately then how well we've done. Britain in Bloom takes place on October the 31st in Brighton, so we've got to be on tenterhooks then, but we will know hopefully that we've been really successful in Wales in Bloom. And traditionally we've always held a celebratory evening here in Abergavenny, because very few people can actually go to the award ceremonies, but it's an opportunity to bring all the groups together to celebrate their achievements and with a great social evening, and people can gather and chat and talk about their plans going forward. So it's something we always look forward to. When we know the results of Britain in Bloom, the chair of Wales in Bloom, Peter Barton Price, has promised that he'll come down to a presentation evening then. So he's obviously very hopeful that we'll achieve great things in Britain in Bloom.
No pressure whatsoever. Well, if that's wet your whistle and you'd like to find out more about Abergavenny in Bloom, please do go to the Abergavenny Town Council website. There's also a dedicated Facebook page for Abergavenny in Bloom. But for now, we wish all the volunteers who are taking part in this year's Britain in Bloom judging, which will be happening on Monday the 4th of August, and again for the awards which will be happening in October, the very best of luck, and thank you for all your hard work. That's it for today's episode of Abergavenny Town Chat, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.